All right, good evening. My name is Catherine, and I work with SEB Housing. And this is the information session for the 2 affordable homes being made available at Hager Homestead in Littleton, Massachusetts. So the purpose of this session is to give a little bit of background information on the homes. We're also going to cover the application, the eligibility, and lottery processes, and what to expect after the lottery is run. If you have any questions during the session, you're encouraged to either type them into the Zoom chat function that you should have on your screen there, or I'll be asking throughout the presentation if anybody has any questions. So you can go ahead and unmute yourself at that time if you'd rather ask the question. So this is a live session that's being recorded. It's going to be saved to SEB Housing's YouTube channel for anyone who wasn't able to attend tonight that would like to watch it. And we also have representatives from the development team joining us in this session, so they'll be able to answer questions you have related to the property, the project. I think, Diane, you're here to answer questions that are specific to co-housing and the community setup itself. So I'll be opening up the floor. How you doing? I'll be opening up the floor to you in just a few minutes. So just know that Diane's here for any of those questions, because a lot of this session will be focusing on sort of like the eligibility process and the affordable housing program and that sort of thing. But Diane will be our expert for all things co-housing and the property. So real quick, some background information on who we are. So SEB Housing, we're an off-site affordable housing consulting group. So we've been hired by the developer to market the affordable home, conduct this information session, collect and review applications to determine applicants' eligibility for the affordable housing program, and then to run the lottery. So we're not part of the sales team. We haven't seen the units in person. We're not on site. But in the initial phases of this process, we'll be your main point of contact rather than the sales team. Further along in the process, you'll be in more direct contact with the owner if you're invited to move forward towards purchasing one of the affordable homes. So we'll touch on both of these, but 2 kind of broad steps in the process. The first step is to apply for the affordable housing program. So you're going to submit your lottery application if you're interested in purchasing one of these homes. And during that process, you'll be in touch with SEB Housing. We can answer any questions you have on the affordable housing program. We'll do a preliminary review of your application. You'll be entered into the lottery if you're found eligible, and you'll be given a position on the waiting list after the lottery is held. And then the second step in the process involves the process of actually reserving and buying a home. So your opportunity to do that will depend on your waiting list placement after the lottery. So we'll go through all of that tonight. And before I move on to, the application process and the eligibility process and all of that, I'll open it up if anybody has any questions that's here about the property, the project, co-housing itself, so that Diane can help you out with those before I move on. Diane, if there's anything specific that you'd like to make sure that everyone knows about the property, you can mention that as well.
Thank you. I don't really have anything prepared. We put together an information sheet that you've posted on your website, which I think is really helpful.
Yep, that's up there. If you go to, I was going to mention that next too, if you go to sebhousing.com and you click on I want to buy and select Hager Homestead, you'll be taken to a page specific to this property. It has the downloadable version of the application, a sample deed rider, which I'll touch on, the information packet, which has most of the information that I'll be talking about tonight, and then also that info sheet. So some of you may have already looked at that. If you haven't, it is there. Gives you a little more information on co-housing and the property itself. All right, if no one has any questions, I'll continue on with the rest of the presentation. And again, feel free to ask any questions during tonight. So I've mentioned that most of the information that I'm going to be going through is in the information packet that you can find on our website. Even if you attend this session, we always recommend that you take a look at that information packet. There's a lot of information that's useful in there for you if you're interested in purchasing one of these homes. So if you choose to move forward and you want to apply for this lottery, you'll first need to complete that affordable unit application, so the lottery application. And you don't need to submit any income information at this point to, you don't need to submit pay stubs or anything like that to verify your income. That would come later on. All you would need to do to apply for this lottery is submit the lottery application, and then you also have to attach a mortgage pre-approval. And you would submit those to us at SEB Housing in one of several ways. So you could email it to us. Most people email or scan it as an attachment to info@sebhousing.com. You can also fax it to us. That is on the fax number is on the first page of the application. You can send it by regular mail to the address in Needham that is on the first page of the application. Or if you live in the Needham area, we do have a drop box that you'd be able to drop it off at our actual office. So whatever one of those options works best for you, that's how you would apply. We encourage you to get your application in early. It's fairly brief, shouldn't take you too long to complete. And again, no supporting income information is needed at this early stage in the process, just the lottery application and the mortgage pre-approval. And those applications are due by July 29th. So at the end of this month, they would have to be delivered or postmarked by that date to be considered for the lottery. I want to mention that this lottery is for 2 affordable units at Hager Homestead. The affordable units, they're going to be purchased by households whose total annual income is at or below either 60% of the area median income for Littleton, Boston area, or 80% of the area median income for the area. Hager Homestead is also offering a few other income restricted units that have slightly different eligibility criteria that are going to be sold to households with incomes at or below 100% of area median income or 120% of area median income. Those units are not part of this lottery, and the application process is separate from this one. So I'm not going to focus on those other income restricted properties during this session, but I just wanted to make sure that you're aware of that option if you maybe qualify for those income tiers. And I'll highlight a few differences at the end of this presentation so that you're aware of those in case you're interested. All right, so on your screen now, you can see some of the details of the unit. So one of the homes is going to be sold at an affordable price to a household with incomes at or below 60% of the area median income, and the second home will be sold to a household with an income at or below 80% of the area median income. So Hager Homestead, it's a 26-unit co-housing community where at least one member of the household does need to be 55 years of age or older. All homes are privately owned. They're going to be clustered around a shared green space and a common house with shared amenities. Community members can choose to have as much privacy as they want. These are all private homes, like I said, but if you would like some more community, you can find that at this property. It sits on a 15-acre lot. The address is 336 King Street. It's a short walk from Littleton Center, Town Hall, Public Library, a future senior center, and it's not far from the commuter rail station either. It borders walking trails and conservation land, and the common house is going to act as the social center of the property with a large dining room and kitchen, living room, other amenities. But if you choose to, eat most of your meals at home, you do have a full kitchen, and there is optional group meals in the common house. So the sales prices are on your screen now as well. For the 60% affordable unit, that's going to sell for a sales price of $163,300. And if you qualify for the 80% of AMI home, that sales price is going to be $253,000 and $900. There is a monthly condo fee that will cover some interior and exterior repairs, maintenance, landscaping, snow removal, some reserve funds as well. And since these homes are being sold at affordable prices, again, they're only being made available to households who qualify for this affordable housing program. So you have to be under that 60% of AMI income or 80% of AMI income. Those area median income amounts are set by the Federal Housing and Urban Development, so HUD releases those amounts for each county or area in the state and the country each spring, and Littleton falls within the Metro Boston area. Since these are affordable homes, they have what's called a deed rider filed along with the deed at the time of the purchase. So that deed rider ensures that the homes remain affordable in the future, even if the first owner chooses to sell it. To give you a couple kind of main overview of what the deed rider does, it limits the amount for which you could eventually resell the property. So if you're looking to, I don't think anybody is looking for this, but we always like to mention, if you're looking to, buy a home and flip it or resell it in a year or two, this isn't the opportunity for you. It doesn't mean you won't be able to sell the home eventually at a price that is more than what you pay for it. It just will need to be resold to another affordable buyer. So you could have some return on investment, but you're not going to see the same appreciation that other market rate homes might see. There is a formula for resale that is on the last page of the information packet, and it's based on area median income. Another stipulation in the deed rider is that it must be your primary residence. So generally you can't rent it out as a investment property like an Airbnb or something like that. And then also, if you'd like to make any, if you'd like to refinance or make any capital improvements, such as a new roof or some sort of, maintenance on the property, the state agency that oversees the Affordable Housing Program, which is the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, EOHLC, they would need to approve the refinance or the capital improvement. These are new homes. Wouldn't expect that you'd be doing anything like that for many years, but just want to make sure you're aware of that because the deed rider will have language about that in it. So I mentioned that the mortgage pre-approval is required to be submitted along with your lottery application. So if you haven't already obtained a mortgage pre-approval from a bank, we suggest that after you review the information packet, if you're interested in this opportunity, you could just rip out or copy page 8, I believe it is, of the information packet that has the mortgage. Yep, the mortgage pre-approval standards you will see there. And you can bring it to the bank with you and show it to them. And the reason that we suggest that is you want to get a mortgage product that meets the necessary standards of the Affordable Housing Program. Same thing with the deed rider. You may want to bring that with you as well. It's on the website listing, the sample deed rider. Since some of the information in the deed rider can be problematic for some banks, some lenders, certain loans won't accept all the terms of an affordable housing deed rider. So for example, the loan needs to have a fixed interest rate throughout the term of the mortgage. It also can't be an FHA or a VA loan, since those types of loans don't accept the deed rider restrictions. So you don't want to be in a situation where the lender grants a pre-approval without realizing that these affordable housing stipulations are in place, and then they back out at the time of purchase because they weren't aware of those resale restrictions. Kind of along those same lines, we always like to mention that in our experience, it's been difficult for applicants to successfully close with a Bank of America loan. So we recommend that you don't use Bank of America for your pre-approval because their mortgage products don't seem to be suited for affordable housing homes. But with that said, you can select any lender or bank that you would like. We just strongly recommend that you choose someone who has experience with affordable housing programs. So there is a link on page 10 of the information packet that's going to direct you to the Mass Housing Partnership website. They're an agency that is a great resource for you if you need to find lenders who are familiar with the affordable housing program. So take a look at that. The mortgage pre-approval is also going to state that you must provide a down payment of at least 3% of the purchase price. half of that purchase price, so 1.5% of the purchase price, must come from your own funds. So your loan or mortgage will be for up to 97% of the purchase price. Before I go on to eligibility requirements for the actual affordable housing program, do you have any questions on what I've mentioned so far? All right. So the eligibility requirements for the actual affordable housing program. There's 4 main eligibility requirements. These are listed in the information packet as well. The first is that everyone in the household needs to qualify as a first-time home buyer. There are exceptions to that I'll discuss in a minute, but households can't own a home at the time of your application. So if you own a home now, you would need to sell it and be off the deed by the time you're applying. Even households who qualify for these first-time home buyer exceptions would need to sell their current home if they own one prior to your application. The second eligibility qualification is that household income and assets must be below the minimum allowable amounts that you see on your screen here. So I'll talk a lot more about that in just a few minutes, but as you can see from your screen, the asset limit for a household is $275,000, and the qualifying maximum income limits are listed here for both the 80% affordable unit and the 60% affordable unit there. So it's by household size. And then third, households have to be pre-approved for a mortgage. And then 4, households cannot have financial interest in the development or be a related party. So this doesn't come up very often, but if you work for the developer of these condos, or if you're related to them in some way, you may not be eligible for the lottery. And then for this particular lottery, I mentioned that this is an age-restricted housing lottery, so there has to be at least one member in your household over the age of 55 to qualify for this, this lottery. So to circle back on the first-time home buyer criteria, so all household members are considered first-time home buyers if they haven't within the last 3 years owned a home, and this includes through joint ownership. So if a household member was on the deed of any home along with a partner or a spouse, you were still considered to own that home. And there's 5 exceptions to the first-time home buyer rule. They're listed out in greater detail in the information packet. The 3 exceptions that come up the most often, the first is someone that's referred to as a displaced homemaker, so someone who has not worked outside the home for many years. They may have just worked primarily in the home to care for the family in the house, and they owned a home with their partner or spouse, but they no longer own the home due to a recent separation or divorce. So they're no longer on the home deed. If you qualify for that within the last 3 years, you may still be eligible for the lottery. The second exception to the first-time homebuyer rule is a single parent with at least joint custody of 1 or more children, who now is being displaced due to a family breakup. Then the third exception that comes up sometimes is an age-qualified household. So someone who's over the age of 55, that person is selling a home in order to purchase an affordable property. So if you qualify for any of those exceptions, you do still need to sell your home before buying a condo at Hager Homestead, but it may mean mean that you need to take some action before doing that. So for example, if you're in the process of getting a divorce, that may need to be finalized before you're able to purchase the condo, so your name is no longer on the deed. And then also to circle back on income limits. So since these are affordable condos, like I mentioned, they're being made available to purchase it at prices that are lower than the market rate homes within the community and within the area, the Littleton and Boston area. The maximum income limits are set by household size. So if you're figuring your approximate household income, you want to make sure you're including everybody in the household. And then as you can see, that list is there. So if you're a 1-person household and your total household income for the year is below $62,538, you may qualify for the 60% unit If your income is between 62,538 and 91,200, you could qualify for the 80% affordable unit. If your income is over these amounts, you won't qualify for this lottery or for the affordable homes. So take a look at those and just, try to estimate what your total household income is so you can, see if you might be eligible for these. And like I mentioned, you're not required to submit verification of income when you first submit your lottery application. We just need that, the lottery application and the mortgage pre-approval. If you're found eligible for the lottery, you'll be sent a documentation requirements guide. This will be sent to you by email, either as an attachment or a link. And the guide details exactly what you will need to submit after the lottery. So how many pay stubs, everybody will need to submit their last 3 years of tax returns. And what you'll need to submit might vary a little bit depending on what your income sources are. So if you have a steady job and you're working, you're going to need to submit a certain number of pay stubs. If you're receiving retirement benefits, you'll need to submit a certain number of those, and the guide gives you that information there. And after the lottery, if you are moving forward in the process, you'll have about 7 to 10 days to get all that information into us and at SEB Housing. And SEB Housing will work with you to make sure that you get all of the information into us. So if you don't have everything right off the bat, we work with you, so don't worry about submitting partial information to us. It's a lot of info, so we just want to make sure that everybody gets that complete application in when the time comes. And then just to give a basic overview of how we calculate income, although we won't be calculating your income or confirming it anytime soon, because it won't take place until after the lottery. Just to give you an idea, so income for this program is counted as a projection of your income over the next 12 months for all household members. So that includes, if you're working, any bonuses or overtime. The only exceptions are if you have minors in the household who are under the age of 18. If that person is working and earning a wage, we're not going to count their income. And then if you have a dependent full-time student who's working, we're only going to count the first $480 of their wages. We do need to count gross income, so the amount you make before taxes. So as we all understand, most people do not take home the full amount of their salary. There's, taxes taken out, health insurance benefits, that sort of thing. It is the gross income, though, that we need to count on the program. And then how we calculate income isn't the same for every applicant, because everyone's income circumstances are different. So some applicants are going to have a weekly salary that is consistent throughout the year, and then others could be self-employed or working seasonally. So in those circumstances, we may need to look further back into your past income in order to project your anticipated income for the next 12 months. And then if you're self-employed, you do need to complete a profit and loss statement and provide supporting documentation for your business. We have at the end of the application, there is a template profit and loss statement that you will, after the lottery, will need to complete. So in general, any income that you have been making or benefits that you have been receiving, we're going to assume that you would continue to receive that going forward unless there's some sort of definitive documentation confirming that you're no longer going to be receiving it. So if you switch jobs, we'd need something confirming that you're no longer working there, that sort of thing. So when you're filling out the application, just make sure you're listing everything, any type of income that's coming into your household. So not just wages, but also Social Security, benefits, unemployment benefits, assets that generate income. Just make sure that you're listing all of that on your application. To apply for the lottery, there's no minimum income requirements. But of course, in order to qualify for a mortgage, you're going to need to meet the bank or lender's requirements to get that mortgage pre-approval. So there's no set minimum, like I said, but if you don't qualify for their pre-approval, you won't be able to get that, which is a requirement. The asset limit for this lottery, like I mentioned, is $250,000 at the time of your application. That includes any funds that you may have been gifted, for example, for a down payment. you would need to disclose that if that has occurred. Cash in savings, CDs, the net value of any stocks or retirement accounts like a 401k, even, bonds, your Venmo and PayPal accounts, all that sort of stuff is considered an asset. You might think it's a little strange that we would count funds that you have tied up in retirement accounts, especially if you're not planning on using them anytime soon. But the program does require us to do so, since you could, in theory, access those accounts even if they did incur a penalty. So it's the post-penalty amount and the net cash value for your 401k, for example, that we would need to see. So usually that means getting a letter from your financial institution that has that 401k. And if there's any interest that's generated by those assets, that income would be counted as well. So any questions on the eligibility criteria for the housing program and how we calculate income? Just let me know. All right. And then lottery eligibility. So as I mentioned, if you're interested in applying for one of these homes or for the lottery, we do suggest that you get your application in as soon as possible just to start the process. The deadline is the 29th of July. And SEB Housing will review your application and contact you if anything appears to be missing or incorrect. You'll have the chance to resubmit and get that into us. If you're found eligible for the lottery, you'll be sent by email a lottery application number, and that number will be in the form of a series of numbers. So that's just an anonymous identifier at this point. It's not a ranking of any sort. It's the number that will be drawn in the lottery. Because we're not going to call someone's name during a lottery, so it's just meant to protect your privacy. So if you were the very first person to submit a application and be approved for the Hager Homestead lottery, your number would be A.001. In that email, it's also going to confirm if you indicated on your lottery application that your household qualifies for local preference. So if you work or live full-time in Littleton right now, you might have local preference. So you want to confirm that your email correctly identifies your household as local preference or not, because that could impact your placement on a future waiting list. You don't need to supply verification of local preference until after the lottery, though, just like all the other verifying information. Okay, so lottery deadline is July 29th. The lottery itself will be held virtually on August 12th. Much the same format as this information session. It'll be held at 6 o'clock in the evening, and it'll be a Zoom session. So depending on the number of applicants, the lottery application numbers will either be drawn from a lottery box that I'll have with me, or we will use a computer to sort the numbers, and then that would be screen shared with you. So every lottery number will be drawn. Sometimes we think of lotteries, we think, okay, there's two homes, there's going to be two numbers drawn, but that's not the way that this lottery will operate. Every lottery number will be drawn to establish a waiting list for the condos. And it also creates an order of priority for the next step in the process. So if you're watching on the night of the lottery, you're not going to know your placement on the waiting list during the lottery itself. All applicants, including those who applied for both the 60% AMI unit and the 80% AMI unit, are going to be drawn in one drawing. So since all the income tiers in both local and non-local preference households are going to be mixed in with one another during the drawing, that's why you won't know immediately where you fall on the waiting list. But we do our best to send you the waiting list pretty much right after the lottery. So that evening, we'll sort the waiting list and send an email to all of the applicants so you can see where you fell on the waiting list. When you're reviewing that email with the lottery results, you're going to find your lottery application number and see where you fall on the waiting list. So you should have a better idea at that point as to whether or not you'll be moving forward into the next step in the process. If you are one of the top households on the waiting list, SEB Housing will send you an invite to then move forward in the process. And that's when you'll be asked to submit all of the verifying income, asset, and tax documentation. that's required to confirm your eligibility for the affordable housing program. So hopefully at that point, you've been able to look at the documentation requirements guide that I referenced and get all that information into us. So once we receive your application package, we'll review it and then we'll respond to you within a few days, make sure we have everything that we need. Again, I mentioned most applicants don't submit 100% of the information that's required on that first submission to SEB Housing, both because there's a lot of information required, and then sometimes the information that you do submit initially prompts a few questions from us in terms of, okay, we see that you have some Venmo, debits coming in here. We need to also have your Venmo account and all of that sort of thing. So we just encourage you to get everything together as soon as possible after the lottery, and then we'll work with you to get that completed application. If you're found eligible by SEB Housing, after we've reviewed all of your income information, your tax information, you're one of the top households on these waiting lists, our next step is to send your full application file to the state. Again, that's the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, or EOHLC. That was formerly DHCD. They changed their name last year. And they will then do a file review and give us the green light that you're eligible to move forward in the process. Once they have approved your application, the process becomes very similar to the steps you might take if you were purchasing a market rate home. So we always like to say too, at this point, after you've been approved by both SEB Housing and the state, we encourage everyone, if you are interested in getting a attorney, it's perfectly acceptable and likely the smart thing to do if it's something that you want to do, to have someone representing you, and it's a big decision to make sure that you understand the process when you're signing these closing documents. So once the state has approved your application, we'll put you in touch with the developer, the owner at that point, to schedule a time for you to tour the condo if you haven't already, and complete a reservation agreement. So to reserve a home, a $500 refundable deposit is required. After you reserve the home, you'll have about 10 business days to sign the purchase and sale agreement and place the required 1.5% of the sales price minus that 5%. The $500 that you had already paid to reserve the unit. Your purchase and sale agreement is going to include certain agreed upon contingencies and a closing date. And then that's, the purchase and sale is one of the final steps in the home buying process. So you're close to the finish line at that point once you've got there. Once the purchase and sale is signed, you're going to need to go back to the bank or the lender that issued your mortgage pre-approval and obtain a mortgage commitment letter from them. That process varies a little bit depending on your lender, but generally they're going to want to review all of your documents up until this point. So your purchase and sale agreement, the deed rider, and they'll do an appraisal of the condo itself. So you've gone through this whole process. Households remain eligible for the affordable housing program. Households must remain eligible for the affordable housing program up until closing, which is about 3 to 4 weeks prior to your closing date. That's when we're going to conduct a final review of your finances. So SEB Housing will be doing that final review. We may ask for updated pay stubs, bank statements, a mortgage commitment letter to confirm that you're still eligible for the affordable housing program. And if your eligibility has been maintained, you move towards closing. Once you've closed on the home, you can move in. There's no future income certifications that you need to do or asset eligibility reviews. Once you move into the home, you don't need to continue to have a certain income level to remain there. There's nothing like that in the future, which is great. So in terms of the affordable homes, that was all I wanted to touch on from the information packet. But again, just to circle back, in case anybody's watching this later or anybody's on this call that is interested in those income restricted homes that I mentioned at the top of this that are 100% of AMI and 120% of AMI. Just real quick about those. So there's two homes that are going to be not part of this lottery, but there's 2 homes that are going to be marketed for or sold to households who have a total household income at or below 100% of area median income. One of them is a 1-bedroom, one of them is a 2-bedroom. And then there's additional 4 units, 2 1-bedrooms, 2 1-bedrooms and 2 2-bedrooms that are going to be sold to households with incomes at or below 120% of AMI. So the application process for the 100% and 120% homes is first to reserve the home with the sales team. So you would contact info@scbhousing.com. We can answer any questions you might have on those homes. Again, they're not a part of this lottery process, but if you're interested in it, please get in touch with us. And just some key eligibility differences for those 100 and 120% homes. There's no asset limit for those. The mortgage pre-approval standards don't apply to those units. Applicants for those units can own another home. And the applicant files will be reviewed by the town instead of the state that I mentioned, because EOHLC is not involved with those higher income tier programs. The units will still have a deed rider that gets recorded at closing, and it places the same limitations on the program in terms of resale and all of that. But again, those units are not part of this lottery. So if you're submitting an application to SEB Housing for this lottery, you are looking to qualify for either the 60% AMI unit or the 80% AMI unit that is part of this lottery. So that about covers it. Like I said, any questions about the lottery application process or the homes themselves?
Hi, I have a question. My name is Laurie.
Sure.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I'm very interested in the lottery, and I qualify for a lot of the information you have given me. One question I have is my son is going to be able to help me out with he's going to gift me some money to help me out with this. What kind of documentation would I need once I if I bring the application or send it in, which I think I'm going to bring it in, would I need to show that he is going to help me with this?
Yeah, so there'll be a lot of information in the documentation requirements guide about that, but I think in general it is a notarized letter from him. If there's any deposits that he's already made, some verification of that. Just what his intention is in terms of helping out, having that documented. Yeah.
All right, and so basically, just fill this out the best. I basically just did fill it out, but the documentation afterwards I wouldn't need that right away. So it's more important to get the application in.
Yep. So just when you're filling out the lottery application, make sure to note it there. So we'll follow up with you for the verification of it. But just list that as a source of income. There is a section for gifts for family members and things like that, so you can write that in there. Okay. And then once SCB Housing staff is reviewing your application, they'll know what to request from you after the fact.
Wonderful. Okay. Thank you very much.
Yep. Any other questions?
I see, Catherine, there's a question in the chat asking what does the term co-housing mean?
Sure. So we have that, Diane, you can speak to that too, but the information sheet that's on our website talks a little bit about that. So Diane will give you some information, but also if you want to check out that info form, you can do so.
I suggest you look at it's just the one-page sheet at SCB Housing that talks about co-housing, but basically it's the idea that we want to live together as neighbors in a neighborhood. It's kind of like, I don't know, when we grew up, there were a lot more neighborhoods around, I think, where people knew each other and looked after each other because you could tell whether someone was home or gone and you cared about each other. And so we decided that co-housing is that idea. It initially started over in Denmark, and there are hundreds and hundreds, maybe probably thousands over there. am not having my numbers correct. And it's been going on for a very long time there. It's been in the United States for probably 25 or 30 years. And so that's what co-housing is the idea of people who live in community, who want to have neighbors, who want to know their neighbors, who want to communicate and participate with their neighbors, sort of working on, doing things together helps you build connections with each other, and helps to create that community. And there were some of us who wanted to have community as we age. So that's why it's both a senior 55 plus community and a co-housing community. So I hope that's helpful.
Great. Any other questions? And if you think of anything, by the way, after tonight, and you didn't ask it during this session, or if you're watching this session after the fact, you can email us at info@sdbhousing.com. That would be the quickest way to get in touch with us, or you can call us at the 617 number that's on your screen now for any questions about the property itself or the lottery process or application process. All right, we look forward to getting your application. And again, any questions, please let us know during the application period, which is until July 29th. Thanks so much, everyone. I appreciate you joining in. Have a good night.
Thank you.